you can invest and have a lot of money there by using this cultural heritage they have. I remember one time when before the hyperdeck come to reality, the Niger State cultural tour, that is Guape International.
The famous Guape International.
During Kuri. May God forgive his soul.
Allahumma.
The Guape International presented a drama sketch for federal government to give Niger State hyperdeck. One time, the administration of Engineer A. Kure, they invited him for a program, national news at Abuja. They asked him, what do you want? And he said, I don't want anything. What I want, my cultural troupe have presented it. That is, they say they need hyperdeck. And now, look at hyperdeck has come to reality in Niger State. During who brought that hyperdeck? It's cultural this year. So Niger State government, I wish if they can turn their back and face the cultural heritage that Niger State have.
All right, sir.
I just give example with Guape International because that is the roots of cultural this thing. So Niger State have a lot to do to invest in these all cultural activities. We can reduce all this insecurity they have. We have.
All right,
if
thank
all these things have taken place. So that is my take.
All right, thank you very much, Manta. Okay, as Manta was making his submission, Dr. Muhammad Ansala Ali made his way into the studios. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Good morning, our listeners.
Okay, we are taking a look at the essence of Cultural Day celebration in cementing our unity as Nigerians and, of course, bringing the government closer to the people. Just like what Manta said, the famous Guape International.
Your number one station.
Own unique way. You know, Guape has to do with Gwari and Nupi combination of it, and is a famous drama group in Niger State.
1.7 Prestige FM.
Spotlight in various events then of government.
Yes, of course, the Guape International that made its way in the 1980s and rose to international stardom was about the only dance drama cultural group that we had at the time. It came with a new vista on promoting culture as well as some other traditional heritages through the costume they wore and of course some of the actions that they took while exhibiting their skills have sent a lot of messages to so many individuals. And no wonder, even when they were invited for international cultural gatherings, they have made their marks. We cannot forget in a hurry some of their achievements in faraway Manchester, England, when they were invited there and they came back meritoriously with a lot of medals and encomiums as well. And Guape International is among the leading cultural troupes in Nigeria over time. And over the years, they have played a great role in promoting the culture and heritages of the people of Niger State. And not only that, organizations of annual festivals, as the one exemplified by the people of Gawu Babangida, I think is a very good way of reviving our cultural heritages. Today, people are only attracted to environments through some of those cultural heritages and other ancient remains that people will want to see. People may have heard of some of those things and they may wish to see some of those things and try to see how they can reconnect with the past. And the annual festival, as organized by the youth of Gawu Babangida, of course, should serve as an example to some other youths who have remained largely in limbo, looking at the fact that many members of this generation have been far removed from the cultural heritages, and therefore
Your number one station. 91.7 Prestige FM.
and in the process, of course, you realize that if annual festivals are being organized, it will help to also serve as a kind of a revival of that culture. And most of these cultural troops like Guapi are usually the custodians of our cultures, because they exhibit those cultures, they exhibit those traditions, they exhibit those values and beliefs of the people. And we can, in Niger State, for example, we have a lot of communities that have engaged in some of these festivities over time. We have the Gani Festival, for example, in far away Kutigi, and we have so many other festivals that usually come annually with the time of the year, especially during harvest. And many people have come from far and near to come and see how those cultures have been exhibited.
Apart from the Salah Doba celebration.
Yes, apart from the Salah Doba celebration. The Salah Doba celebration, you realize that it's a uniform thing all over northern Nigeria. The Salah Doba came with the establishment of kingdoms and emirships. And that also was brought about largely by the advent of Islam in northern Nigeria. As you can see, it is being reserved for only during Salah celebrations. But of course, you also have some other celebrations that usually take place, especially during the Turbaning ceremonies of chieftaincy title holders. And there are also other specific festivities that usually take place during specific time of the year and during time of the season as well. So in Niger State, we have quite a number of things that we can sell to the outside world. And I keep saying it here time and again that if we become too lazy, too complacent to revive our cultures, some other people may begin to narrate our stories for us, and they may narrate it in a manner that we may not like, because they can portray us in whatever color that they want. They will portray us according to the figment of their imaginations. And that is why I have said it here time without number that there is a need to reintroduce history as a course in schools. Civic education is not enough. Civic education is miserably inadequate to capture who we are. Transformation and transmutations that we have gone through with the advent of foreign cultures, and then where we are at the moment and where we are heading to. And that is the only time we'll be able to understand ourselves. Because whether we like it or not, history remains the chief custodian of our past. And our forebearers, especially those who are still alive, are also the ones who are the custodians of our history. They knew where we are coming from, and they are the ones to tell our stories. And if we allow them to die, they will die with an integral part of us that may never be told by anyone. And therefore, if we continue to harness our cultures and our festivities, they will also go a long way in attracting other people from other climes. Like I said, if you don't tell your own story, somebody will tell it for you.
Definitely.
And in a manner that we may not like. You can imagine, for example, an European writing the history of the Nupe people, writing the history of the Bagi people, writing the history of the Kambuku, the Kambari people. While we have individuals who are aged within these cultures, and we have been so lazy, they are lying right there at our threshold. We have been so lazy to go and ask them about where we are coming from, and who we are today. And that is why today, if you want to get some of the most comprehensive stories about Nupe, about Bagi people, they are the ones that are being told by Europeans. And those mostly are stories from the figment of the imaginations of those Europeans. And that is why when an African began to tell our own stories, we tend not to take him serious, because we feel that he does not belong to the past, he's just part of the present. And what stand has he to say this is where we are coming from? For a lot of people, they feel that any history written by an African
is simply a folkloric history. But it is not. Because he or she may have sat down with his grandparent and, through oral rendition, some of those stories about who we are may have been told to that person. And because he's an individual who is interested in conducting research in that area, may have come up with some of the plausible discoveries of our roots. And that is the portrayal of where we are coming from. And including even the culture itself. You can imagine, for example, when you go to places like Sotamokun in Bidda, for example, where they do brass work, and even some of the glass and ceramic works that they do there, those things have been there for centuries. And how many Africans have written about that? Even if there are Africans who may have written about that, how many Africans have invested in those writings to bring them to the limelight? You realize that many of the findings are still on the shelves of many universities and academia, collecting dust. Nobody tries to build upon them. You can imagine when you go to places like Brazil, you still see some communities in Brazil exhibiting cultures that are similar to those of Yoruba, those of Nupes. This is a signifier of the fact that there were indeed slaves captured on our own soil here and taken to Brazil. And you realize that nobody appears to be saying anything about this. Just last week, the Ghanaian government opened its doors on all Europeans and Africans all Europeans and Americans of African origin who wish to relocate to Ghana, that they will be given free citizenship. How I wish Nigeria is a stable country and we can also do same. That is the only time we'll be able to see many of these people coming back from diaspora, coming back to invest in our culture, to invest in our heritages and promote some of these festivities, just as the one that has taken place in Gauba Bangida.
Okay. Various tribes have been holding such kind of events, and foremost is the issue of agriculture and, of course, youth involvement in agricultural practices in the community. How have you seen this call made by the prominent individuals during these events for youth to embrace agriculture? Is the climate ready for youth to venture into that?
Of course, the climate is overripe for the youth to come in. But I guess
your number one station, 91.7 Prestige FM.
As the youths are interested and keen into the agricultural policy of the government, there must also have to be that conscious and sincere effort on the part of the government to reach the real youths who are interested in agriculture, not the scourges of the earth that swarm around the politicians. Those are not youths who are interested in agriculture. The youths who are interested in agriculture are still domiciled in our villages, in our hamlets. When you go out there, you see them and the farmlands that they control, and even what they produce as their output year in, year out. Those are the kind of youths that deserve the kind of intervention that the government is coming with. But in our own situation, sometimes most government functionaries pay mere lip service to the issue of interventions. And I am not happy with that, because here we are, hundreds of millions of naira will be removed for interventions, but it ends up in the pocket of office farmers. Even as this government is making effort to reach the real farmers, there are still a lot of things left undone. And until the government began to make sincere effort, that is the only time we'll be able to see the kind of impact that these interventions are making. What will it take for the government, for example, to identify some of these communities and try as much as possible to reach these real farmers at their farm gate? I said at their farm gate where they are farming. In as much as the government will continue to warehouse farm inputs and invite the farmers to come to the city center and take some of these things, there is no way they can access it. But if you take it closer to the farmers, I think they will access it much more easier. And then more so again, if you are able to identify them and also at their farm gates, that also make it much more easier. And interventions like this will also help the real farmers to also make some significant changes and development in terms of method of farming. As it is, we are still largely into subsistence farming using our old farming implements. Even as the government have come in with so many modern farming implements, but there are still a lot of gaps that are yet to be filled. And the youth, I'm sure, are yearning for this intervention. Like I said, not the ones that swarm around politicians, but the real farmers are still domiciled in the village. The fertilizers that were distributed, how many of those real farmers have accessed the fertilizers? You realize that those swarms that move with the politicians have been able to access dozens of bags of fertilizers, and they don't have an inch of farmland to cultivate. Many of these fertilizers end up again being recycled to the market. These were the things that happened. So we hope that in the years to come, the government will have listened, will have learned one or two things from the exercise of last farming season, and then try to take corrections from there so that the real farmers will access this. And then that is the time when we'll take the government more serious about encouraging and inviting youth to go into agriculture. Mechanized farming is good because it will serve as a source of employment within the value chain, from the farmland through the harvesting period, and then the processing stages. It will all serve as a means of job opportunities for many of these youth. And I am happy that the government is coming with something like this. And there is a time when it is supposed to tell those youths who are very docile and complacent of not wanting to do anything at all to key into this. As they come into your office, tell them to go and get a farmland, and you will support them. That is the only time you will be able to be free of them. But in as much as they keep coming and keep giving them a handout to go and take all sorts of things, they will still be coming again.
Okay, apart from embracing the new method of farming, how can the government make it easily accessible for these youths venturing into farming to get this farm input? Because we had series of intervention coming from government targeting farmers, and the story is not quite pleasant.
Yes, as you can see, there were two stages of interventions that came. The one from the federal government and then the one from the state government. The federal government came with a fertilizer that was supposed to be distributed free of charge to farmers. Free of charge, I still emphasize on that. But how many farmers were able to access free fertilizers? This is the question we need to ask. Many of those fertilizers were rebagged and moved into the market. Many of those fertilizers end up in the hands of politicians who also distributed same to those who swarm around them. And the end user, who is the farmer in the village, end up going to the market to go and buy. And that also goes same way with even the one brought in by the state government. So even the food intervention, the palliative, which appears to me as an insult on the eyes of the underprivileged, was also not adequately distributed. The distribution was terribly handled, and you realize that many people end up not getting anything at all. And those rice, the spaghettis and all of those things of this world end up going back to the market, and people went back to the market to buy them again. So you can see that I am sure the government is watching closely. I may have observed some of these lapses, and I'm sure it will take a cue to understand that the modus operandi of the distribution was terribly handled, and hence they need to they need to come in with a new strategy of distribution. Nigerians are not lazy. The youths in Niger State are not lazy, and youths in Niger State are not used to begging and praise singing and all sort of things that the youth are doing these days. Is not part of the youth in Niger State. The begging person, the Nupe person, the Kambari person, the Kamoko person, none of these 3-4 tribes that originated from Niger State are known for begging and are known for laziness. The average Bagi youth is a hard-working person. The average Nupian youth is a hard-working person. When you talk of the Kambaris and the Kamokus, these are equally hard-working people, and they ensure that they work hard to earn their living. They work hard to break the boundaries of successes. And that is why today you can see that many of these youths are finding it very difficult to move closer to the government because new attitudes, new social orientation has been brought in to our midst. And you can see that many of the youths today have resort to begging, resort to praise singing, and all sort of unnecessary things just to win favors from the politicians. And unfortunately, the politicians themselves have fallen into this trap and have come to believe that only those praise singers are capable of bringing in vote for them. And that is why what they do first and foremost is to satisfy the praise singers. And that is why praise singing will continue to thrive, and hard working is relegated to the background. And that is why people of this origin, the Bagis, the Nupes, the Kambaris, and the Komukus, have been relegated to the background because they insist on working hard. They insist that hard work is the only key to success, and not laziness, as exemplified by those youths who swarm around our politicians. The earlier our politicians understand this, I think the better. And the earlier the politicians who are representatives of these tribes that I have mentioned knew that they are representing these communities, and in as much as they don't take care of these communities, they are relegating them to the background, the better for them, and the better for our communities, the better for our state as well, and the better for the image of the state. As the governor is working assiduously to come in with a new urban renewal, with a whole new agenda in Niger State, there is the need to also complement all of this effort with taking adequate care of the people and their cultures and their traditions, as well as whatever thing that they hold very dear to their hearts.
Okay, 090388088883 is the number to call in, of course, to make your comment. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. Who do you have on the line?
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
My name is Wabali. You said it all the time. You see, all of this last is, most of it come out from our serious leaders, because most of our leaders are not serious, and most of our stakeholders are not serious. All of this should mention, wallahi, that is the only truth. Those that are ready to work at their in the villages around us, Kuta around us. If you go there, you see hard-working, very hard-working youth. You see a youth that is having, for example, even in Mina here, they found after harvesting, they will sell and have their 3 cycles. They're having any money here, and so they are in the villages working.
Hello.
You see, if care is not taken, most of these things that are happening within us in Mina will never take us anywhere, sincerely speaking. And our government needs to change all of these things. The President, you mentioned something about history. This is what is affecting the Hausa land. Somebody that is by a Jinja is one that brings Hausa. How can somebody that is not understanding Hausa bring Hausa? It affects Hausa. Something like that. We should not learn how to tell our own history. We should not just be taking things for granted. We should not be throwing our history, our culture away, picking from somewhere that are not even culture. Those that are not having culture, they are coming here to steal our own and take it there, and we allow them to again write our own history.
All right, sir.
You see, it's wrong.
Thank you very much. We have this comment on our Facebook page coming from Nafi Alamin Shishi. He is wishing us all the best. Thank you, Nafi Alamin Shishi. Awal Shuaibu Amfani. He is wishing us all the best. Also, Awal Shuaibu Amfani. Thank you. Comrade Ghana Jibril Trashko, he said that I don't have much to say. Okay, greetings to you. Thank you, Comrade Ghana Jibril Trashko. Muhammad Ibn Bukar is saying cultural heritage in Niger State is a blessing and a wealth generating solutions for our dear state. The Big Douglas Walks, the Gani Festival, the Shironi Young Festival, etc. a headway of tourism attraction. The Niger State government should focus largely in tourism investments. The Nupi Atelier is also a sample of culture. We appreciate the former governor for wearing the costume in the United Kingdom. We really need to copy from Kenya, Rwanda, and South Africa in tourism and cultural development. Thank you very much, Muhammad Ibn Bukar, for that. Okay, Doctor, talking about cultural development also, how about these sad incidents that you found that during these cultural days, some try to portray their political affiliations, and some will not find it really suiting for people to be displaying their political affiliation, which negates the essence of this cultural heritage in cementing our unity.
Well, that is a coloration of the environment now, politics. And in as much as the environment is laden with politics, you cannot remove politics from promotion of culture. Those who organize it may have organized it with an intent to reach certain objectives. Maybe on the surface to promote culture, but again, on a deeper consideration, to also promote the political interests of someone or a political party or an entity. But by the way, in whatever ramification this may have come, it is aimed at promoting culture. And culture, of course, is that part of us. If we become uncultured persons, then definitely we have lost that integral part of our identity. We don't want what happened to our forebears who were enslaved in foreign lands. And many of them today do not have cultures. All they knew is that they are Africans, but they could not attach themselves to a particular culture. And many of them who are beginning to trace their origins back to certain countries, they don't actually know where they belong to. And that also threw a whole lot of confusions around them. So I believe that we that are still domiciled in Africa, there's the need for us to first and foremost promote our culture. But you cannot also promote the culture if the language itself is not being saved. Languages today are dying. Many of the languages are on the brink of extinction. Many of our languages are no longer functional. Many of our languages are languishing in borrowing, and many of our languages are almost gone and cannot even be spoken by current generation of individuals that we have. So in as much as all of these retardations we are being characterized by all these retardations, then even the promotion of culture itself will be a very herculean task to carry out. And I believe for whatever policy that the government is coming with, if it juxtaposes that with culture, it will go a long way in encouraging people, especially those in our rural areas, to easily key into these policies of the government. Promotion of culture is not about fanfare alone. It is also about promoting everything about us, including our local dishes, including our local housing architecture.
That was held in Abuja, where Niger State was represented, also displaying our rich cultural dishes in. It was a competition.
Yeah, exactly. These are some of the indices that make up a culture, because that community that could not identify its own dish, I think the community is endangered in terms of what it consumed, because our forebears knew what to eat and at what time. They knew what to take when they are sick. They knew what to drink and at what time. Yes, local herbs. They are always there. And they knew the kind of houses they build, so that each segment of the house has a specific purpose during the time of the year. For example, they can have a structure where you can stay in during the hot season, and they can have a structure where you can stay in during the cold season. They can have a structure where you can sit and relax even during the rainy season. So all of these things are part of the architecture that our forebears have left behind. And we rush to build mansions. We rush to build chalets. We rush to build castles without taking recourse to some of those heritages that we have. For the local man in the village, for example, during hot season, you will see him in his what they call zaure, because the zaure is well fresh and ventilated, and he can easily stay there and take fresh air. And even during the hot season, they have a place where they can even pass the night. And during the rainy season, they have a place where they can stay. And their storage system is equally very good. They store some of their food items in the kitchen, and they are well preserved. They store some of their food items even on the farm, and they are well preserved. All those things have been thrown overboard, and today, even though the population have more than tripled, silos are there today, but how many of those silos are filled with food items?
All right, let's take this call. Hello, okay. 0903-880-8883 is the number to call in, of course, make your comment. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Hi, Jamina. Good morning.
Morning, sir. Who do you have from today?
Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
There's no any matter of doubt this program we are speaking to us. Just to let us go back to learn more. Why? I think my friends are like after had this photo calling somebody to me also.
All right, sir.
Thank you for this program. You know, Africa is a very fishy, God have created. If you are a black man, you should always need that and thank God. Almighty Allah has created you as a black man. It's coming from Nigeria, the country we are proud of. No, you can see what has happened today. I know, believe me, I know that there's no Western country where we can Africa. Who are the people who make Western country to be Western country today? The aspect we are talking about. Yeah, it's a gift from God, and we appreciate we continue from God. We're excited to our country for children coming up. You see, looking at the culture is very rich. As we are talking about Nigeria, especially in Nigeria State or Kogi State I'm coming from, when you hold your culture, you are proud of your culture. You see that now, they are saying, well, I want to practice your culture. Somebody will start telling you against you where you practice your culture because he's against whether you are coming from the Muslim side, you are coming from Christian side. It's all culture.
Irrespective of religion.
They respect themselves.
All right.
They respect the soul. They respect their life. And they pass their life. That's why we see that there's not anything else. You can't just see somebody come out to the carry bag and just start killing.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Yahya Adamujaba, best wishes. Thank you very much for that comment. Doctor, okay, let's take this call, then we'll wrap up the program. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Dantala. Good morning. My
Morning.
name is Ambassador Gebu the Challenger. I'm calling you from Fulani.
All right, sir.
Dr. Dantala, if we want our culture to be very, very rich, you understand, we should practice speaking our mother and father tongue to our sons and daughters. Then number two, Bello should be revived.
That's it.
Should be revived. This other foreign center over there, it should be revived. And if they should do that, believe you me, even in this sector, we will generate a lot of revenue. And lastly, Kwafe International should be revived. It's very, very important. So please, right on the Republic, let us and do the people in this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gebu the Challenger. As last caller, will be taking the program. Dr. Antala, let's wrap up the program. How best can we ensure that we revive our culture and, of course, attracting tourists into our community?
Well, first and foremost,